So I recently discovered that Corey Feldman wrote a memoir. I discovered it after going on YouTube to look up his Today Show performance, which I am sure a lot of people have. And then I discovered an interview on the Wendy Williams show where he discusses his memoir. So as someone who grew up loving the Coreys, I had to read it. So I read it. I read it in one day. It was really, really well written. It's a very, very sad book. He's been through a lot in his life and not treated very well by the people around him. But there's a couple things in the book that kind of stood out for me that really kind of bothered me. And I just wanted to see if anybody else kind of had the same opinion or noticed the same things that I did. And one of the things that really bothered me is he called the film Labyrinth the campy vehicle for David Bowie. Now, seeing as this was written in 2013, so 3 years ago, and considering the work that Corey has done, or had done up until that point, I really don't think he was in a position to call anybody else's work campy. I'm just saying, that's my opinion, but I really don't think that's fair for him to kind of belittle somebody else's work, especially after seeing the dance sequence in Dream a Little Dream. I'm just saying, that was awful. But there were two main things that really bothered me in this book. And the first thing was actually in the introduction. And he talks about when he learned about the death of Corey Haim and how his camp was kind of saying, you need to make a statement, you need to make a statement. And he, at that point, didn't really trust the media very much because he'd had some really bad experiences. And he decided that he wanted to do Larry King Live because of the way he treated Corey Haim during their final interview, which was in 2007. I will post the link below. And he describes the interview in the book. If you go back and watch it now, the Larry King Live episode plays out like a tennis match. What you see is the camera bouncing back and forth between me and Larry and Corey. Rarely are we all on screen at the same time. What you don't see is that Corey is nodding out while we sat there, literally fading in and out of consciousness in the middle of television. The cameraman would cut away when he started to drift, and suddenly you'd be watching clips from the films we had made together. Then he would cut back to Corey just as he opened his eyes. At the commercial break, Larry leaned over and asked Haim if he was going to be okay, but he never said anything like that when we were actually on air. I suppose that made me trust him. It's why I chose his show on the day that Corey died. Now, I'm the type of person that when I'm reading an autobiography, if the person writing the book mentions an interview or a photo or something like that, I Google it because I want the full picture. So that's exactly what I did. Now, the Larry King Live interview from 2007, where they discussed the two Coreys, the show, Corey Haim is very coherent. There's no nodding off, there's no tennis match, nothing like that. There was this really creepy moment where Corey Feldman called himself a sex addict, which was just nauseating. But anyway, even Corey Haim was uncomfortable with that one. So it really made me question a lot of the rest of the book because, and when I read that, like the introduction, I went right away to see the interview because I was really curious. So I read the rest of the book knowing that had been misremembered. So it kind of made me question a lot of the rest of the book. The other thing that really, really got to me is throughout the book, he talks about Michael Jackson, which is to be expected. They were friends. He talks about meeting him and their friendship and all of that. And he talks about this time they went to Disneyland incognito, which sounded like a really fun trip. But he defends Michael Jackson throughout the entire book, saying, nothing happened. We were just friends. He never saw anything nefarious, nothing like that. However, near the end of his book, which is literally 20 pages to the end of the book, he talks about this 2020 special about Michael Jackson, and he was interviewed for it, and when the interview was finally going to air, which was in February of 2015, he saw the promos, which was child actor Corey Feldman speaks out against Michael Jackson. And he goes to describe how he didn't understand how anything he could anything he said could have been taken to be nefarious. So what he says is, I had a sense for what I was in for. At the same time, I immediately began racking my brain. I couldn't remember saying anything that seemed all that groundbreaking. I couldn't remember saying, I did admit that Michael had once shown me a book filled with pictures of adult genitalia affected by venereal disease. That happened in his apartment in Westwood, en route to an overnight undercover adventure at Disney, which he had described early in the book. And I did say that, as a father, I would never have agreed to send my kid to an overnight at Neverland. I actually didn't believe this was a particularly controversial statement. Now, I can understand when it happened, it not raising any red flags for him. He was continuously surrounded by people that took advantage of him and did horrible things to him and treated him horribly and were grossly inappropriate. So I can understand that. However, by 2005, not only was he a parent, he was an adult. So to be so blasé about it, and the fact that it still doesn't raise any red flags for him, so much so that he just kind of popped it in the end of his book, like, that's really, really telling. And I think it's really telling of survivors of sexual assault and abuse is things become so normal that you don't think anything of it. And, it's really sad. But I thought that was really telling. It really rubbed me the wrong way that he was just so like, yeah, so this happened and I don't see what the fuss is. But he wouldn't have sent his kid to Neverland for an overnight. Like, so I think on one hand, he may have, like, subconsciously somewhere in there, he knows it isn't right, but he just doesn't get it. And I think that's the thing that a lot of what I got from this book is he's in his own reality. And I know everybody is actually in their own reality, right? Like, your reality is shaped by your life experiences. And this outlines the reality that he lives in. So unfortunately, it saddens me that this is a reality he has to live in. But I'm glad he got over addiction, and I'm sad that Corey Haim died, but I'm really happy that Corey Feldman's in a good place now. Like, kudos to him. So I wish him all the best. And yeah, if you get an opportunity to read the book, I highly recommend it. So, thanks.